City University Television presents the American Theater Wing Seminars. Working in the Theater. This seminar
Hello, I'm Sondra Gilman, Chairman of the American Theater Wing.
And I'm Doug Leeds, President.
We welcome you to the American Theater Wing's Working in the Theater seminars. Every one of these programs covers a specific topic in the art of theater, and funding from the Annenberg and Dorothy Strelsin Foundations have allowed us to expand these forums. We want to thank them for their wonderful support.
The Wing, with our partners, the League of American Theaters and Producers, is perhaps best known as the presenters of the Tony Awards, which recognizes excellence on Broadway.
However, the majority of our resources are devoted to educational programs to help young people enter the theater as a profession. And these seminars are just a small part of that. Each year we give scholarships to students and grants to New York not-for-profit theaters.
In addition, we produce a weekly talk show on XM satellite radio called Downstage Center that is broadcast coast to coast. Our newest programs, Springboard NYC and the Theater Intern Group, provide educational and career development opportunities for aspiring theater professionals.
All our educational and media programs, including these seminars, are available free, on demand, from our website, www.americantheaterwing.org.
We thank you for joining us, so without further ado, let's go learn more about working in the theater.
Hello, we have a wonderful group of musical directors and choreographers who are going to tell us the secrets of the theater business. First, Christopher Ashley, known for many of his offbeat kind of musicals and plays. Rocky Horror Show, for example, All Shook Up, The Smell of the Kill, one that I particularly liked. He will tell us more about that. Next to him is Gillian Lynne, one of the greats of the musical theater. She did her groundbreaking work in Cats, Phantom of the Opera, coming shortly, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and she has starred with the great film actor Errol Flynn and danced with Margot Fonteyn. She was with the Sadler Wells and Royal Ballet, so she knows what she's talking about. On the other side is John Carafa, a director and choreographer. Into the Woods, nominated for a Tony, Good Vibrations, and Urinetown, one of the funniest plays I've seen. You were a Thwalathorpe dancer. We have another dancer. And next to him is Rob Ashford, a dancer also. He's been on Broadway as a dancer. He won a Tony for Thoroughly Modern Millie. He did Boys from Syracuse and an associate choreographer on Kiss Me, Kate. Let's start with you, Rob. What do you need to know to be a musical director?
I think to work in... That's a great question. I think you need to know as much as you can know about everything in the world. I think the more that you know about life, about the world, about not just art, but life is really it. I think that is a great help. You also need a lot of communication skills. I think that's
Did you have communication skills? What was your background,
Well, you know, I was always the dance captain in the shows that I was in. And when you're the dance captain, you develop a certain kind of skill of communicating with a cast, the leads to the chorus. So I think that was valuable training because, you know, you're a therapist to each person, so you treat everyone individually. I think that's the key to success, that everyone's psyche works in a different way. So I may be able to walk into Chris's dressing room and say, hey, Chris, you should be on 4, not 2, for the big kick. But then I might have to go to Jillian's dressing room and say, Jillian, it was great last night.
Oh, you
it
shouldn't
was
be
so
on at all.
great. You were amazing last night. You were really, really terrific. The show was great. Oh, by the way, if you could be on 2, not 4 for that big kick, that'd be great. So you learn these skills, and I think that's a big part of it too. I was fortunate that I learned the piano as a teenager, so I do know how to read music. I think that's very helpful. I don't think it's essential, but it helps. And I think that when I was a dancer and a dance captain and working as an assistant, I kept my mouth shut, and I used that as kind of university. And I think that was a great help, how to work with a dance arranger, how to work with a director, how to collaborate with costume and set designers. I think all of those things are invaluable.
Now, you were all dancers. You were not.
I was not.
So, how do you tell
and the world is
dancers
glad
what to
about
do?
it, that I was never a dancer.
Because you can have authority over dancers? How do you tell them what to do?
I completely agree with Rob that the central skill in either choreography or direction is communication. And it's balancing being egotistical enough to feel that a room full of people should do exactly what you say, and being inquisitive enough and open enough that you can really accept information from other people and figure out how to talk to people with very different techniques and very different backgrounds, and know that a musical is a very complex event and you'll never know how to do it absolutely, so the key to unlocking your ending may come from the usher, and being sort of secure enough that you can hear it from the usher and also then go back in and tell everybody exactly what you want.
Gillian, how do you see the attributes?
I think instinct is the single most important thing of the lot to have as a director of musicals or as a choreographer, but certainly as a director, because there are so many, there are usually 5 egos that are all working away at making this one piece of theatre. The lyricist, composer, director, choreographer and designer. 5 vibrant, we hope, egos all working together. So I think as the man or woman leading it, you have to have a tremendous instinct for what is right, and then you have to, and hopefully you will have developed this, like Rod says, through your experience that you've had in getting there in the first place. You will have an instinct about what is right, and then you have to really huge people skills in that some people are very slow to get onto the main idea, and you have to nurture and be a mummy. In my case, a mummy, and other people have to be driven with the whip, and so on. And it's getting this balance right, because I'm sure my peers will agree with me that a musical is far more difficult than anything else. I mean, I'm sure we all direct everything, don't we? And I've directed quite a lot of television and a lot of plays, and nothing is as hard as a musical.
So collaboration is very important.
Terribly.
You feel that's
the job.
It's just collaborating. Well, don't you have to maintain a certain authority yourself?
I mean, well, listening to Gillian, it reminds me of how much maturity is really required from the director.
You mean because I'm ancient?
No, because you have, when you, I don't want to embarrass you, but when you speak, people listen. I mean, there has to be a respect that just you naturally have, that you command from people, and the great directors. And because a musical is kind of the pinnacle of the artistic achievements, I mean, all the arts are combined in one event. That person who is the general of that ship has to have so much maturity and respect for others, which allows him to get respect back from them. And I think ultimately the thing, because I've worked with so many great directors, Chris among them, I've found that they just when they have that sense of self and sense of vision and sense of a greater purpose in what they're doing, you listen to them and everything else falls into place.
Well, how do you learn intuition? I've heard that word now used. How can a person learn how to do, or are you just all 4 of you just born to do this? Is there?
It's hard to learn, isn't it? I mean, I think we wouldn't actually get off the ground without it. I think that is one of the things that perhaps is untrainable. I mean, we get into plays, or we get into musicals, or we go into school and we dance and sing and all of that. And that will be developing. I mean, I'm sure that as we all grew up under other people, we were thinking, in the end you think, why isn't that happening? And then that means your own intuition is being trained. But actually to take someone and say, today we're going to start learning intuition, I think that's difficult.
I think you can learn to trust your intuition, I think you have to.
But you can't tell me that just everybody has the right intuition. People have
No.
wrong
No,
intuition.
I don't think.
So
that
No, it's
how
only
would
few.
you?
yeah.
It's very few. Very few. So you are the secret few who know these things.
I think another term for that actually is your first impulse. Like when you
Yes,
first meet the
that's right.
material, the first time you
Yeah.
read the script or hear the music or see the painting it's based on or whatever that first interaction with the piece of art is, your first impulse about it, if it's right, it'll guide you all the way through. And if your first impulse is askew, you're always off track.
Well, what do you do before you see the actors, for example?
Well,
When
I
you
mean,
get the material.
so much work before you get the actors.
Everything,
is done.
actually.
I mean,
Everything is done
everything is done
before
before
you
the
see-
actors.
That's a big
So
question.
We have to
Okay.
now,
It's your
particularly with
it's your
economics.
director. If you're a choreographer, as I am, it's working with your director. I mean, I always before. In the pre-production process, always bring the director in, and as I work with my dance arranger, and we pitch to the director every single idea, everything. I'm not talking about showing steps, but I'm just talking about pitching. And then they come into the bar, and this is the moment when the bartender comes over, and this is all of these musical moments to make sure that the director agrees. That this is the way it should be going before you actually develop the dance or the steps.
So the first thing is you get the material and then you imaginatively construct each scene in your...
But in our case, as a choreographer,
Yes.
you do, because if you're the director, there is a text. And what we have to build are the songs, because we normally stage the songs. So we have to open those out, as we call it in the business, which means you don't just have the song as writ, you have part of the song, and then the acting moment that you want there, you open that out so that somebody moves a bit and then carries on. And so we have to create those moments, those songs and dances, and they're so much part of the structure. That's what Rob means about that. Then you want to run that past the director, so he's got the whole in the end.
So your question is it's very basic, right? It's we get a document, and then we get a script that's on paper,
Or parts
Yes.
of
and we get music, but the music is not necessarily structured in the way that it will end up being structured in the show. And as Chris said, you have your own impulses when you read that. You read that and you get images. Oh, yeah, I see them dancing in big chorus
You
line. I
close
see
your
them.
eyes when you're...
It's hard to read with your eyes closed.
No, but I mean, after you've read it, do you then close your eyes and see the dancers?
No, it's just like if I said, you're running down the street. All right, what street did you imagine? The script says he's running down the street. Did you imagine a city street, a town? Did you imagine 34th Street? Did you imagine 8th Avenue? And you talk, whether you're the director or the choreographer, or start to expand on that vision and just talk to the designers or talk to the director
Do you
about what
do
that
the
vision
steps in your apartment or wherever you live yourself, and you're
The steps are the last thing.
Yeah,
For
the
me,
steps
anyway,
are the thing.
the steps
Okay, the
are the
steps-
very
yeah,
last
really?
thing. The steps are not that they're not important. They're very important.
I thought
but
that would be the first
It's the
thing.
last thing.
Well,
It's-
what's the
it's
first thing is
well,
just the
Well,
concept.
the first thing is the concept.
Concept,
And
the
also,
idea.
how do you do storytelling through the dance? Because I
Yeah.
think that's so important. And look, John just did an entire evening like that. It's so important. You can't, because patience today is very small. And no one wants to just sit and just watch something stay at one level or just dance to atmosphere. If you're trying to establish a smoky bar, and after, audiences today are so smart, after about 4/8, smoky bar established. Now what happens? You can't dance smoky bar for 5 minutes because no one cares.
so...
You have to have storytelling in the
Happened
dance.
really in the Smoky
You mean
Bar.
somebody slaps somebody?
Something has to happen.
Story.
And hopefully,
fight in the bar.
to your lead characters or your secondary leads or someone you care about.
And I think that's why musicals are so hard, is there's so many primary creative people who all have to end up telling the same story. Your choreographer and your director and your designer and your lyricist and your composer and your book writer and your orchestrator and your dance arranger and
Yeah, it's true.
all of the actors and all of the dancers. and
With
all
the same
singers and-
tone.
With the same tone. It's
And
like
that's the
style
tricky-
comes into it. But ultimately, if you're not all telling the same story and not all after the same goal, then you get this disjointed beast instead of beautiful, elegant evening.
I agree with
story.
all of that, with the exception of Cats, because we started with Cats. With Andrew wrote, well, first of all, there was this brilliant little book called Old Possum's Book
Yes.
of Practical Cats, written by a major poet, T.S. Eliot. And Andrew Lloyd Webber had adored that little book for years. It had been sitting on an aunt's coffee table. And so eventually he wrote beautiful, I think, wonderful music to the poems. And then he said, let's make a dance show. But there wasn't a book at all, not at all. But the poems in themselves had inbuilt stories and such strongly defined characters that I went into a room for 4 weeks before we ever started rehearsals on that show.
With how many dancers? Did you go alone?
I had a boy and a girl and my assistant.
Right.
And I had the first Rum Tum Tugger because he had done all the demos for Andrew. And Andrew said, as a favor, I know he can't dance and I know it's a dance show, but would you work with him so that he could get through it somehow? So that poor man had to do class for a month with me. But so as a reward, I staged the Rum Tum Tugger in the pre-work. But then gradually we put them together, and then we made a story. But that's a weird one-off, really. And we were luckier than we ever believed.
Then you worked on people. You used human beings.
We often
and you said
do
to them,
that.
move here, move there. And
Well,
then you said,
we often have a boy and a girl to try things out, to try lifts on, and also because I was trying to pre-package or pre-create, if you like, a whole show. To remember all that is hard. You want to get it onto somebody else's body and have a look at it and judge yourself, you know.
How much did you have done before you went into
I
rehearsal?
had 3/4 of it because we only had 5 weeks rehearsal for that show. And when we entered the rehearsal, we had not yet a book. We had this wonderful music, and I'd pre-staged a lot because I knew that if I didn't, they would never get the stamina to sing and dance constantly. But that was unusual.
So the songs had lyrics, they weren't just music. But
No, they were T.S. Eliot's brilliant.
Right. You had those, but you didn't have the outer structure of that.
No, we made it up as we went along.
As you're in the rehearsal, in the pre-production.
I had to do a lot of it in the pre-production in order to go forward
in order
to the
do
next
something.
one.
Right.
There's a whole other thing that it happens with directors in pre-production, which is your conversations with the set designer, which is a whole other, what the physical constraints are going to be, what the set is going to be, how it's going to move, what locations of the scenes determines an immense amount of what the show will look and how it will move.
or where the dancers can move, presumably.
Absolutely.
So do you draw that then out somewhere on a
For me,
rehearsal
there's
room
usually
floor?
45 meetings across 6 months where
Lots of
you
drawings.
draft and redraft, and there's napkins involved, and then like
paper
lots of
cups and-
assistants drafting and
And no
research
steps have
pictures.
actually come in yet. You're still.
No, this is very
models.
first things. Models.
Little white models or colored models of the set,
I think
Just
we
keep
all
it in
admire designers so well because we have our meetings, as we've all been saying. But in a way, the designer is the one who has to come to the boil first, isn't he?
Yeah.
I always admire them so much because talking of this wonderful idea that Chris was saying, that we're either turned on by the piece of material or we're not. But then the designer has to commit more and more quickly than we do, don't you see?
Yes.
In a little bit. He then talks to all of us, but still, he's the one that has to kind of forge through.
The set model is the first time
It
anyone's
is.
on the line.
It
It's that they're the first person who's like, here's what it is.
This
Yeah.
is what it
It's
looks
my-
like.
I think
way.
they're very brave.
I think so
very
too.
brave.
So Pia, what we're kind of, I think, all describing is that the first day of rehearsal is kind of the last day of a huge part of the
So
development
most of the work
show.
is
Well
going on
said, well
before
said.
the actors have even
Yeah.
gotten there. We have a tape of Thoroughly Modern Millie, which is fantastic. And Sutton Foster was so good
she's
in
so
that.
great.
Oh,
She's
wasn't
really
she?
good.
So good.
Let's look at
She's
that for a
wonderful.
moment.
This is 1922.
have any choice in casting these people?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
you have a definite, especially obviously the ensemble, the dancers. We had 20 on stage ensemble and dancers, and yeah, you're a part of all of that. Especially when a show gets to the Broadway level, I think everyone's involved with everything. It seems like.
But who has the final say? Do you, as the choreographer, or the?
I think that
Director of
the
the musical?
dancers or the dancers of the show. So of the 20 ensemble, 10 were dancer singers, 10 were singer dancers, and the 10 that I had more or less the final say. But again, in a collaboration, listen, if Chris didn't want that one tall girl and thinking that she's just going to stick out, and I just don't think it's going to be right, then I have to listen to that, you know. And then of course the director has the final say over everyone, of course. And but yeah, you talked about the first steps. That's really the first steps that are made for the auditions, and that's always nerve-wracking for me, because it's the first time that your collaborators or anyone, your producers, anyone are seeing anything that feels like steps, and because everyone's so anxious to get the show alive and to see it for real, those 12/8 that you do for the audition suddenly take on this enormous weight. So when you're in that studio just trying to get together an audition combination, knowing that maybe not one single step would be in the show, and that's fine, it's still
Do you find that's hard sometimes because they're completely out of context? You're making choreography that has no story to it, so it's like
completely out of context.
Wow. Yeah.
Because you want to make sure they can turn and kick and jump or all of those things. You know?
Fosse had one phrase.
He had the idea.
Yeah.
Bob Fosse had it's called T for Two, and he had an audition combination that he always did for every audition.
So the same.
The same one for every.
Had a turn, had a jump, had a rolled on the floor.
Had everything in it. Had style. He had everything in it in T for Two. So when you audition for a Fosse show, you always did T for Two for the initial auditions.
Because he'd had thousands of people come, and so we
Because as I now understand, none of you have actually prepared the steps, so you couldn't actually give them the steps yet.
Well, not the real steps.
Not the real steps. I mean, you haven't done the real steps. So
Right.
the real steps you do. Julian,
They're milling about.
Yes,
By that
they
time,
are.
they're milling about. And sometimes you might let maybe 8 bars or something out to just be testing for yourself. But you don't really want to let it out then either, do you? And you haven't come to the boil. I keep using that phrase. It's very English. Do you understand what it means?
To the boil,
Come to the
yes.
boil. It's all to do with making tea in the kettle. But I think we should just say one thing too, that now, do you not think we have to make compromises, because economics are such that sometimes there are 4 wondrous dancers that you would really love, but they can't sing quite as well as 4 others who can sing really well and dance enough. And in the old days, of course, you could have dancers and singers more, and nowadays everybody must do everything. I'm always telling this to everybody who's training, you know.
You also have to cover all the leads out of your ensemble, which is
Much
a big.
more than we ever did.
What does that mean, cover your leads?
Well, in the sort of more long ago, there were offstage covers who, when your leading man was out, would come in and play it. Now, almost always, the ensemble is who are also the understudies for the lead roles. So it's a big negotiation at the point of actually casting your ensemble, of saying, do we have enough people who can really dance it, enough people who can sing it, and who's going to play the blind 80-year-old?
Right, and who's going to be the first and the second cover?
And do we?
I mean,
do we cast an 80-year-old in the chorus, and are they going to stick? Can they dance what we need, or do you cast a 20-year-old who's going to play an 80-year-old Wednesday matinees when?
It's an exhausting process.
You were not a dancer. How do you handle dance steps then?
You know, Chris is not a choreographer.
Yeah, director.
Chris is a director.
Oh, you're the director of a musical.
Exactly
I
right.
thought you did choreography as well.
Absolutely.
Should we go down the line and fill her in? Chris?
Director,
choreographer, director, choreographer.
We have a little mixture here going on. So you don't have to read music. You don't have to dance.
It helps. I mean,
Does it help?
you don't as much as a choreographer does, but there's many times where you have to say, on this eight count, I want this to be happening, or you know, take it from the key changer. Like you really need to know something about music, even if you can't read it off the page.
Right.
But as a choreographer, I've learned a lot from directors who that aren't dancers, because they understand the spirit of what they think that moment needs. So even when they get up and do their version of a dance, which isn't a dance at all, but the emotion is right, and usually fourfold. So you can take that and learn and go, oh, I see what you want. Not those steps, but you want that energy or that commitment or that
And
passion.
perception. They sometimes perceive something in something we're doing where we've been working to get a certain maybe kinetic effect. But they see, but that's not quite telling that story if you did this. Don't you think sometimes they see through?
I feel like a little knowledge is a dangerous thing too. Like it's always a better conversation when I say I feel this, or here's the storyline. And as soon as you start saying that second position is not so good, you're sunk.
In the same way that the director isn't a set designer either. He has to just be able to communicate his passion and his vision to the designer as he does to the choreographer.
Did you always want to be a director, choreographer? Is
Well,
this something that
I had hoped to do it, and I had dreamed of doing it, but I held back from doing it as long as I possibly could, because I just think choreography is so hard in itself, and I wanted to do great work as a choreographer. But this has started to come up, so I started to do it.
But sometimes you have to push to go from choreography to director, don't you, of a musical?
There are people who just, well...
Don't they pigeonhole you and say you're a choreographer and therefore you can't?
I think they do for a while, but nowadays...
It's a pretty common transition from choreographer to director. If you're a good choreographer, they start talking about it. You know, everybody's
absolutely
talking about it. So it's just a natural, because there is an overlap of some of the skills, but what I found is it's a really different job.
Well, it
It's a
is.
really different
You have a
job.
text.
It's it's just that there's a level of what I said at the beginning of maturity and vision and also as a director you have to step back in a way that you don't as the choreographer. As a choreographer, you know, we learn when we do big musicals how you have to step back and let assistants do things as a choreographer. That's, as a choreographer, how you start to step back. Because the way I have always worked as a choreographer is one-on-one. I'm great one-on-one with an actor who can't dance and making them look great as a dancer. And that's been my passion, you know, working with actors dancing. But that's a one-on-one thing. If you're going to try to have 10 actors do that, you've got to have assistants doing it. So it means as a choreographer, you don't have the time to be in there and to do all that work. You have to have a whole team supporting you. As a director, it's another step removed. You've got to just be able to communicate, lead the show, lead the team, and not do it yourself.
That's what I was wondering.
That's a really basic way to say it.
Demonstrate the steps?
As a choreographer?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, well, some people, it's different on every show. It's different on every show, but most shows, it comes out of your own body.
Do you do the text? Would you say to an actor, I'm going to read the text the way I want it?
No.
or
So
really
that is
rarely. It's sometimes you get to it's called a line reading.
Yes.
You're telling them how you want the sound,
well,
and it's really supposed to be forbidden, and makes everyone crazy, and it's usually a bad idea, because usually if you say a line to an actor the way you want it, they'll do it well that time, but they're not understanding why you want what you want. It's not in them in any meaningful way, and it just kind of degrades over time and gets worse and worse. So it's way better to describe what it is that you want rather than saying it to them.
So that's a fundamental difference. In dance, you would actually show them how you might like it?
It is, but it isn't. You do show them the steps, you get the moves, but it's still saying the right things to get them to key
Why they're
into
doing it.
why they're doing it, what storytelling they're doing with those steps, or what their emotion is at that time. So that is the same once you've delivered the steps. You still have
So
to say
motivation,
the right
you
things.
have to then, for every unit of your scenes, there you have to be telling people their motivation, what it is. And do you listen to them when they say, I feel that I would like to do it this way?
You do
Or do you
listen.
say, no, this is your
You
motivation?
do listen, and sometimes you say, that's lovely, let's incorporate that. And sometimes you say, that's lovely, and inside you're saying, but we can't use that.
Yeah.
We will pass
lot
on
of
from
times.
that.
And usually, I think one of the things about a really good rehearsal process is the trust grows. So by week 3, you can say, terrible idea. And it doesn't hurt their feelings because they trust that if it was a good idea that you would say it's a good idea. And you've said enough warm things along the way that you can be really honest about, let's just not do that.
We learn to be rude to each other about week 3, which is awfully useful.
Yes, so they don't take it personally.
There's different ways of working. On You're in Town, I gave the actors, because there were no dancers, and in that show I wasn't at the auditions. I came in.
Oh, you had no
because
choice?
they had to be hired for reasons other than dancing for that show.
Okay.
And I purposefully gave them steps they couldn't do because it was so funny to watch them try to do those steps. And sort of worked on negotiated the difference between what they were, and I could tell the audience was watching it, seeing what they were trying to do. I tried to make it so it was clear what they were trying to do, even and just kept telling them what brilliant, amazing, beautiful dancers they were, and they just threw themselves into it 100% because they thought they were really amazing.
But sometimes they're better than any dancers. They're very endearing.
That's why I love
and their
working
very offbeatness, is what you want in a sense, isn't it?
Yeah, sure.
We have some footage of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, which is the London footage. Ooh. Let's look at that because it's a spectacular show. Well, we can see that there's a lot of acrobatics going on. There seems to be a lot of that in dance today. So do you hire acrobats or dancers to do this?
That's another of our problems, isn't it? Because often we are looking for dancers who can give us, fly when we want, or give us something very spectacular in that way. Not every dancer is trained to do that. So that's another of the juggles we have to do with the voice and the ordinary, good line and attack and acrobatic skills if possible.
Did you help choose the actors and dancers? So you could say, I like this one and I don't like that one.
That's right, and it is, I'm sure my peers will agree with me, that it's become the most exhausting process in the world, auditioning. Because first of all, I'm a softie and I want everybody to get it, and I find it very difficult, saying no. But secondly, you have to regard the singing, regard the acting, regard the dancing and the acrobatics, and then, as Chris says, just as you get a band that you think are brilliant, someone will say, but he has to cover that, and she has to play that role, and then she has to do that role. And so in the end you're going, but wait a minute, I thought this was, and then in the end you feel sometimes that you are casting for the cover situation and not the real thing. So it's exhausting. I go home and take to a vodka very quickly.
I never felt sorry for the directors. I felt sorry for all the people having to audition. Now we see it from the other point of view, the difficulty of rejecting people.
And you want to play fair to everyone, and you're crisscrossing yourself in order to find what's necessary.
They can be inspiring as well, especially for a new show that you don't really know how it looks. You may have in your mind that I think that this world, our world, has everyone of every different size and shape. That may be what you go into the auditions for. And then for some reason a group of 5 ladies come forward and they're all really tall, and you go like, well, that's kind of interesting what it poses, because you imagine whoever's your leading man, imagine him who's shorter in the middle of all those tall ladies, and you go, maybe we shouldn't have all shapes and sizes. Maybe we should have all tall or all short or whatever it is. So the auditions can also be inspiring and help you define the world that you're trying to create as well.
I love early auditions. Like by the end, by callbacks, there's lots and lots of people in the room and producers, and there's so much pressure on the audition. A lot of times what I'll try to do early, the first round, is say just me and 2 other people.
Lovely.
And the actors do the best work in those first auditions.
Yeah.
And you can actually afford to spend 10 minutes on someone's audition. And even if a minute into it, you're probably not going to cast them, at least you can get the best work out of them in that little chunk of time. And that you can't do in a callback. In a callback, it's just...
So is it
over the
true
years.
that good directing is good casting?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Casting is so much of a show.
yeah, it's key.
Absolutely right.
What do you do when you couldn't help it? You got somebody who can't do it. The producer's girlfriend.
You fire them.
We've heard about that.
That's
Somebody-
awful. And
You've got somebody in there. You can't. Do you have the right to fire?
Sure.
Sure.
Oh,
And-
yes? Even
happens
if the
all the time.
producer is hired and the director is hired and the...
You mean an actor?
Yes, while they're on stage. Can you start working with
Wait
them?
until the curtain comes down before you fire them usually.
But then can you, during the rehearsal, do you have
There are
that
rules.
power?
There are equity
there's
rules,
rules
and
about it.
you have, I think, a month, right? A month of performances.
Okay.
You can also fire in the first 5 days of rehearsal.
But you have that power to say, I can't work with
It's,
this
Without
person.
any
the hard thing about it for me is if you end up having to fire a person, as a director, it's your fault.
Right.
You cast them.
Right.
The audition process is to find out if they can do it, and if they it turns out they can't for whatever reason, you didn't audition well enough.
Yeah.
And so they're taking the brunt of it, but it's your fault.
So you have to be
You weren't
sure.
perceptive enough.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. And you try so hard to be as perceptive as possible.
There are
but-
I've had situations where I just had an instinct about somebody, and everybody hated them, and they ended up being amazing in the show. And then I had a similar situation where everybody loved somebody, but what they did at the audition never changed, and there's very little actually you can tell from auditions. You just do your best shot, and that's why you do tend to hire people you know more often, because you know what you're going to get.
I feel like a body of work has to be part of the decision-making process because there's people who audition great and it'll never be as good as the audition. There's people who are wonderful actors, singers, dancers, and don't do well in that audition circumstance.
Yeah.
So if you've seen them be great 10 times, they're probably a good casting choice.
Are people more talented than they used to be? Or is the level high on the skill?
I think
The level in America is astounding.
Yeah.
Is it?
What is unique? Because I did an operetta in Germany a few years ago, and what's unique here is the ability to combine the skills, singing, dancing, and acting. And when I worked in Germany, people came in who could sing brilliantly, they could dance brilliantly, they could act, the same person, but they couldn't do them at the same time. They couldn't get out and sing a song and move. They could stand and sing, And I think this is what's really unique to Broadway, and I can't speak to the West End, but I assume the West End is that combination of skills.
Well, now, a chorus line started it. I think that we used to have dancers and singers and actors, and then a chorus line came, and that was such an interwoven show that it started it off. And then Cats has done an enormous amount to get that interweaving going. And but someone who works constantly both sides and has for so many years, I don't even like to mention it. There's an edge and a hunger here.
Yes, it's different.
Highly competitive.
It's quite
because
different.
it's more competitive.
It
It is
more
more
competitive.
competitive. And also, I've had the good fortune
And you're doing
to
it-
be able to work in London. I did Millie there, and when I did Forum at the National Theatre this past year, and I'm going in a couple of weeks to do Guys and Dolls there. So I feel like I'm getting an idea of London. They do have some incredibly talented actors, singer, dancers, but they have handfuls of them, and we have many, many, many. And so the difference is it's a smaller country,
I was
you
just
know, and
gonna
our
say, we're
country's
only
huge.
little. We're a little
country's
country.
huge, so we draw from all of our, from all of our cities and all of our states.
And
They all
Canada.
come to New York and Canada. So we just have such a larger pool. They don't
Isn't
have
it
that.
also the training we get, the people here?
Well, we have good
What
training. but
they're
they have good
required
training
to
in
do.
London.
Training to know. I think it's
They're actually-
something inbuilt in the American psyche
It
about
is.
that you've got to get, if you can be number one, that's
Right.
great.
Well,
and there is a marvelous hunger. Also, I find there's a passion here
Yes.
for actually showbiz, people go into a theatre and they think, I'm in the theatre, my show, I will do my show well tonight. We have lost that. We haven't quite got that at home.
And also the whole ambition thing. Ambition is not as a positive word in England as it is here.
No.
To be really
Ridiculous,
ambitious
really.
is a little, because
Yes.
you know, I'm doing Forum and it's like none of the understudies are in the back learning them. They're all just sitting on the sides, and I'm like, why aren't
Why
you
aren't
up
they?
learning that? And they're like, oh, no, because they don't want to appear overly ambitious to be standing behind the girl playing Tintinnabula and learning her dance. They'll just stand back and they'll learn it later on their own, just not to appear ambitious. And here it's the opposite. Ambition is very positive.
Now, what happens when you get actors, let's say, who have been trained in all sorts of different styles, different teachers, how do you get them all to go together, for example, to make one unit?
I feel like
You have to know all
it
those
starts
styles.
at the first moment of rehearsal is when they were talking about how scary it is to the first time you show your steps in auditions. For a director, the first moment of rehearsal is just the scary moment. Ooh, I just did it. I did it in my breath. We were warned not to do that. Thank you. That first moment when everyone is as open, everyone looks at you like open flowers. Show us how to be good. Tell us what you need us to do, and they will never be that open again.
Yeah.
And that first sentence that comes out of your mouth in rehearsal goes in and lodges. And if it's a good first sentence, it starts to coalesce everybody around the same way to work and the same story and the same goal. That first speech, I feel like, is so crucial.
What he's saying is that we have to inspire. We can't just stand there and be brainy or witty and intellectual. We have to inspire as well, don't you think? Otherwise, we might as well go out the door and have a cup of coffee.
And what about dance training? I mean, people have all sorts of different training in dance. How do you get them to do, if they've been trained in a Bob Fosse style, or they've been trained Martha Graham, or they're ballerinas or ballet, how do you get them?
Well, hopefully in the auditions you've kind of narrowed it down to the folks
Yeah.
that can do your style or what, you know, or the style you're going to need for this show.
Do you think you have a style?
No, everyone asks that, and
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I don't.
People started
I don't
saying to me-
intentionally
I don't
try
think
to
I have
it.
either. I
You don't
don't know.
intentionally try to have a style. You just try to serve every piece, and I think you try to make every piece as different as an actor would
As
like
is
to make every
necessary.
performance. You know, so when someone says, "Oh, I see, that's you," and I'm like, I don't know what
People
that
started
is.
saying that to me last year while I was working on the Beach Boys show, and they're like, you know, do your thing, do that, you know, that thing that you do, that sort of whimsical, funny thing. It's like, oh, okay, I guess that's my thing. I don't know where it comes from.
We want to look at some of your thing here. We've got some footage from Good Vibrations, so let's look at your thing.
Oh, this is lovely.
What
It's like
did
going
you-
to the theatre.
And after having spent the day together, hold each other close the whole night through. The happy times together we've been spending. I wish that every kiss was ever ending. Oh, wouldn't it be nice?
We always take my car cause it's never been beat. And we never missed yet with the girls we meet. I get around, round, round, I get around.
Time to time.
Get around, round, round, I get around. Get around, round, round, I
I'll
get
make
around.
real good friends. After 6 hours of school, I've had enough of the day. I hit the radio dial and turn it up all the way. I gotta dance right on the side. The beat's really hot. Dance, 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 yeah.
Well, she got her daddy's car and she cruised through the Hamilton stand now. Seems she forgot all about the library like she told her old man now. And with the radio blasting, goes cruising just as fast as she can now. And she'll have fun, fun, fun till her daddy takes her jaybird away.
John, what kind of
That's a year of my life you just looked at.
You looked at it 1 year? Oh, is that how
From
long
start
it
to
took?
finish. Yeah, well, we started with the songs a year ago. It was Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving before the first preview. And in 1 year, I worked with Richard Dresser. We figured out how to take these Beach Boys songs and make them into an evening of fun. And we didn't go out of town. You know, it's common to go try the show out. We didn't try the set out. We just jammed on it and got to Broadway. So I'm looking at that, going, oh wow.
Would
What a
you
year,
change
what a
something?
year.
Do you look at something and say, I don't like that stuff?
You want to answer that question?
Always.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I could have done it better had I 2 years.
Well, you know, it's hard for me because I don't know if I could say I'm the most anal, but I really work very slowly. I'm very slow choreographer. I admit it, and I need to do a lot more pre-production. I wonder if I have ADD or something, but you know, but I have to. I just have to do a lot more pre-production than I think other people do because I'm very meticulous, and the sense of humor that I get comes from analyzing moment by moment what happens in the story of the dance and what cracks me up as I'm figuring it out. And so that's why this was really a tough one for me. There are people who get up there and I'm just saying personally, there are people who get up there and really throw numbers up.
So that doesn't have a storyline, it's songs.
Oh, yeah, it does.
Yes, but I mean, you have to find the story within each song.
You mean there's no book? Yeah.
There's not a book to
well,
it that,
yeah.
you know, there is, but I mean,
a small book, yeah.
But, so you have to find everything
within the songs.
Within the song.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of musical theater choreography, actually the whole job of musical theater choreography, I think, is to take the dance and further the story. And often one of the ways you do that, I mean, you guys probably want to talk about that, is you have to adjust the music to do that. You have to make the song build to get to a climax. You have to make it theatrical. You have to make it fun for the audience.
Are you allowed to change the
Yes, it's
song?
part of the job, and it's a collaboration with the composer. It's part of every musical. It's the difference between choreographing other forms of dance.
Because you can't change August Wilson's words or something, or...
Well, there's a collaboration there, I'm sure, with the director too.
It's another collaboration, yes. And there is this amazing creature called a dance arranger. And
heaven.
so often when you say that to people, they say, but I thought you did the dances. And you say, no, this is a brilliant musician.
It is your primary collaborator as a
it
choreographer.
is.
Tell me,
For
there's
us.
Your primary collaborator.
There's the musical supervisor, there's a dance arranger.
Some are writing positions, and some are more almost supervisory positions, like supervise the orchestra, conduct. That's different from a person who's actually writing notes on a page. And the dance arranger assists the composer, and he writes additional music for the choreographer.
And he has to stay within the style of the composer, so it doesn't look like it's come from left field. And yet he has to, when we think that that character is heart beating and the song's only doing this, but I want to do ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-bum, again.
That's right.
Can you do, and he goes, he does it, and he helps us extend. And it's a brilliant person, isn't it?
It is.
A very creative person.
And so often they're given only a lead sheet, for example, the title song of Thoroughly Modern Millie. All that exists anywhere before we started the show was that tune that you know, that's it. But yet we have a 5-minute long opening number, all created by David Chase, who did the dance arrangements. That's his number from a ditty, from a lead sheet.
Do you
basically.
tell the dance arranger what steps are going to be there?
There's different ways of doing it.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Sometimes
you go first,
do, but
sometimes
most
he goes
of the time
first.
you give the feeling.
So it's more collaboration. Is it
It's
tremendous?
very-
I want to build
It's a
collaboration.
real, it's like a love affair.
It really is.
Yeah.
It is your primary collaboration as a choreographer, other than with your director, obviously. But that's a different thing.
Slut.
But here's the director.
Yeah, there's trouble happening.
Well, is it hard for you to get along with the choreographers?
It's like a marriage itself.
It is.
And it's the only time as a director that you ever would say to somebody, go in that room for a day and make part of our show, and I'll only edit it. I won't make it with you.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of trust to put in somebody else. In a play, as a director, you do every bit of it. There's no rehearsal that you're not at. And in a musical, you're not at where they're learning the music. You're not at where they're learning the dances. You trust someone else, and you trust that you've pre-produced it well enough, and that you've had enough, rich enough conversation about it that they're going to create something that's part of the show you want to call
When
your
you
own.
work with a writer more than once and you have a relationship with them, are you able to say to a writer, that line doesn't work?
I think especially through multiple shows
'Cause you've
together,
done
the walls come down and they say, I don't think that staging is telling the story of this scene, and you can say, I don't think that line is telling the story of the scene, and that's okay, and you're really editing each other's work. And
Yeah. I think some of the trickiest collaborations are with estates of people, not the people, because it's the people that are guarding the gems.
Well,
that's a tougher, much tougher.
Not necessarily artists.
Yeah, negotiation than with a writer or anyone, because if they're there and you can explain and they see, you all come together of like mind. But
after a certain point, if it's Tennessee Williams, you can't change the lines. Say, well, can you?
well,
I suppose it depends whether he was
guess-
doing a musical.
I mean, you
Not
know, there are
you-
how many?
you-
There are three versions of Streetcar. There's his original version, and there's the movie,
okay.
the screenplay
All right.
version, and then there. So I guess the directors to choose which. I really like the ending of the. You know, I mean,
So you fudge it a little bit there. You can take.
yes, you get clear on why you need something, and you know, I'm getting ready to do Guys and Dolls, and Joe Lesser.
Yes.
Is very much involved as far as getting approval or running all the ideas by her running. I'm not talking about little ideas like, is it okay with you if Sarah moves from right to left and picks up a chair? but like big ideas, the set design and the look and the casting of the leads and all of that kind of thing. You know, you run by someone like that who's actively involved in you know, guarding the flame.
So it's another person you have to collaborate with. You must go home and
Takes a
scream. All these people.
I'm having a uniquely great experience actually with an estate right now. On All Shook Up, which has all Elvis music, the Elvis estate commissioned it with the sort of initial idea of create a musical from this music that Elvis is not a character in. And after that initial impulse, they've been nothing but like kind of dude cheerleaders. Yay! It's been amazing, and they really care, and they've really trusted us to do the work, which has been great.
In fact, we have a clip that we'd like to see. Good vibrations. Let's take a look
Shook
at that. All Shook Up, I'm sorry.
We've seen enough of good vibration. That's
We're
great.
glad we're here tonight, too.
The director you asked before, director choreographer, and I just want to say that that's really, for us, that's really fun because you have somebody who you can talk to who's your ally, who has the same concerns that you have. And it's kind of like when you have that person and that it's really working well, you can go away and have somebody to talk to about what you're doing. And that's what's so great about it. You know, I can, if I'm choreographing, I can talk to the director. If I'm director, I can talk to myself. But it's just a really wonderful bond and a great, you know, the times it works, it's some of the most satisfying collaboration you have in theater.
Did that take you a year as well?
3.
3 years. 3 years.
Not absolutely exclusively, but from the time we really started doing readings of it and hashing it out to now, 3 years. And we're in our last 10 days before opening in New York right now.
What's the best part of the whole process?
Good question. Watching an audience watch the show, I feel that's why I do it. There's something that it has qualities of church in it, and that have qualities of sex in it, and there's nothing better than watching an audience really love and really be involved in something you've created.
Gillian, what is the best part for you?
I'm like, where I'm rehearsing at the moment, which is on the 42nd Street studios, wonderful studios, there is a plaque to Mike Ockrent, who is a lovely director who we lost. And he said, and it says, for me, the process is the best thing. And for me, in a way, it's the actual camaraderie and discovery in the rehearsal room, which is so exciting and wonderful. So I'm an old gypsy. I just love that process. I'm not saying I don't like it when it gets onto the stage, but I just find that camaraderie and the daily discovery and watching people get over a hurdle that they couldn't do last Wednesday and now they've suddenly shot ahead with it. That's thrilling.
And for you, what is the best part of the...
I thought you'd ask me that. So many things. I mean, the community, being part of this community. For me, Broadway represents something that's it's just a special place and situation. It's where I want it to work. It's what I want to do. Really, for me, it's accomplishing. It sounds really self-centered, but the most exciting thing is to accomplish a vision I have for something I really want to do on Broadway. When that starts to happen, it's like, yes, I knew that was possible. I knew.
So for you, it's sort of midway. You're in the beginning, you're at the end, you're midway.
Get the vision, the vision done. It's like, do something that's superlative, do something that, because to me, Broadway represents beyond, expectation, and new frontiers in theater, and, doing something like that means something to me. But, the community is such a great thing to be part of the Broadway community. It's so, we feel so lucky to be able to go to any of these events, the Broadway Cares events, and feel like we're a member of the Broadway community. And as Chris said, to see an audience respond to something that you believe in is really incredible. I get that immediate response. Long answer.
What's the best part for you in the whole process?
Well, I agree with Gillian. I like the creative process itself. I like that time more than, say, maintaining a show, more than maintaining or setting other companies, and that's a different kind of thing. But I really love the creative time with the actors, but the community is really, really unique and very special.
It is, isn't it? We don't have that at home either, do we?
No,
Not
it's not.
Same
that's not the
wonderful
same either.
family.
Yeah.
No.
All I ever wanted to do was dance in a Broadway show. When I decided that I wanted to be a dancer, which was quite late. I was 18 years old, and I decided I had to dance, and all I wanted to do was dance in a Broadway show. And then once I'd done that a few times, and once I started getting older and couldn't maintain that, then the thought of that second career, and to be able to have your second career in the same field with the same people as your first career, is thrilling. I see those clips from Millie, and there are dancers in the show that I danced with on stage, and that's so rewarding.
You
somehow.
worked for Gillian.
I did work for Gillian at the
Well,
Met.
tell us about her. Was she
At the Met.
tough?
She was tough, but she was great, and you were inspiring, and you really were. Yeah, because it was at the Met, and it was an opera that had a lot of dance in it, and
it had a hill in the middle of the stage.
A huge hill, and it had the regular corps de ballet of the Met, and then Gillian brought in 4 or 5 extra people, more Broadway people that she wanted also to be a part of it, and she just lit them up.
Was Faust, did you say? Faust.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was dancing in
Hal Prince directed
Faust.
it. Yeah. There was a lot. We did a lot. It was a great experience.
The only thing that I've never forgotten about that was that one day we finished rehearsal in one room at the Met, and we had 20 minutes left. And I said to my assistant, look, we've got 20 minutes. We can dash around to that other room. I haven't quite got this right. We could go there, we'll get it right. And she said, no, they have to have 15 minutes travel time. But I said, it's just around the corner. And they said, no, that's it, that's the union rules. And I nearly had a bit of an explosion, I'm afraid.
Now, let's talk about we've heard about the loneliness of the long-distance runner. How about the loneliness of the director? The show is up, and your job is over. Do you feel a kind of abandonment, or your baby has been born and is now walking away?
Well, it's not really over because you maintain the show, you keep touch with it, but usually you're on to the next. You know.
Do you watch it from the back? You come in at night?
Oh, sure, sure, yeah.
Don't you feel a little left out?
No, no, not at all.
Oh, how about the rest of you?
I feel the first day after opening that I don't see a show, I have to say, in my mind, at 8:04, I'm like, okay, the curtain's going up, and at 8:17, I know when that number's starting, and I track that whole period of time through the show. And there is, for me, there's that separation moment.
So you're still connected. Are you connected, or do you feel that somehow you are now superfluous because the actors, the dancers, the people are now, it's theirs?
I have a moment of that, I have to say. I feel very kind of lonely, and I think, oh, but that's probably because I'm a woman. They don't need me anymore, but then I get back in there very quickly, and I've had to maintain quite a lot of long-running shows, and so you get right back in there, but there is a severing moment.
There's the place, especially the theater itself, when you go in and you go into the stage manager's office, and something that you were just so integral to. I mean, every move, like, what do you think? Do you want to start now? But suddenly, it's all working without you, going around you. You're kind of standing there in the office of the stage manager, and there are 4 people out, and they're trying to sort out who's going to do this and who's going to move this.
Excuse me, can you?
And you kind of just kind of stand there because everyone's working and doing their job like they're supposed to, and you're just kind of. It is a little sad, I do say. And also, when you come back to the show, if you've been away doing another project, you come back, there are 4 people in the show that you've never even seen before do the show, and it all changes. It's a living thing that keeps on living without you.
I also, on Broadway shows, those theaters quickly feel like homes. They're so beautiful, and there's so much history, and you really get attached to being in that place. And there is, like, All Shook Up's in the Palace, which has this amazing history. People who have played there, and it is a treat to go into that room every day. Yeah. And once you're not going into that room, you feel a kind of loss.
Yeah, you do.
Do you watch it from the back, or do you go backstage and look out the side?
Oh, definitely. That's like looking up someone's dress. You can't stand backstage.
No, backstage.
It's too ugly back there and terrifying. Yeah. You have to watch from the front.
They run over you, I suppose, getting in and out.
There's nowhere to be in a lot of shows.
There are terrible moments too. I once went into one of my shows, which shall be nameless, and I thought, sounds a bit, there's no sort of zing in the air, so I quietly went up to the sound desk, this is really mean, and said, is everyone singing flat out? And he went, no, knew perfectly well who was coasting in and who wasn't.
Oh. So then you had
the only time I've ever done it, and it was like a terrible shock. And I went round and had a few words. But, it's hard.
So what are the worst disasters? Have you had a disaster? I don't mean the play was a disaster, but I mean the actors fell down and during the choreography they leap into the orchestra pit.
I've never had anybody serious. I had dancers have injuries. I've had some small injuries, nothing serious. And that's just luck. I mean, because everybody gets injured in shows. Have you guys?
You had any? Everybody's shows have gone perfectly. Come on.
No, I mean,
Did
you asked about
the door
injuries,
come off
but
its hinges or something?
Well, in the Beach Boys show, we had designed these surfboards that would come off, rise up out of the floor. Turned out they had to be attached. We had put these little pistons, and the surfboards would have to be attached in the middle of the number. And second or third preview, one just wouldn't come off, and there's no front curtain in our show.
So he's pulling it and pulling it.
Well, a stagehand had come out, but that people love that kind of stuff in previews. In previews, I guess.
Previews, yes.
Everybody's got those stories, that something won't move, sets crash into each other,
and audiences really love. Honestly, when things go wrong.
Yeah.
Like there was a thing 3 days ago where big vocal moment in the show, a woman standing alone on stage with a big song, and the mic went out, and there was no saving it. And she just, like, big house, and she just decided she's going to sing so that everybody in the house could hear her over a full orchestra. And the audience couldn't have been happier about it. Like, there's no mic, she's really singing, and we're really hearing her. And it was by far the best that number has ever gone from an audience point of view, because they were seeing somebody improvise, like have to figure out how to do it, and they were seeing no technical support, and really just the main human impulse of performing for them with no help.
And these shows are now so technical that you must have things that go in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, or these enormous shows with cats coming up and down.
But we've had the car foul up a couple of times, once when Prince Charles was in front, which was a bit embarrassing. But the funniest night I ever remember, because I'm sure I grew up in the theatre where there were men up in the pulling strings, you know, and you'd say, Charlie, up on your short and down on your long, so that, you know, you've got the scenery going. But now it's all computerized. And one night in Phantom here, in the previews, the grill, there's a big grill that goes up and down. The grill stuck about 4 inches off the floor, and Raoul, the Vicomte, is supposed to be able to crawl under that at some point, and the candles wouldn't go down. Oh. So Michael Crawford and Sarah Brightman, she had her skirt up like this. She was picking her way through the candles like that. He was finding his way. They wouldn't budge. We finished the show like that. I had friends in front, and I said, I'm so desperately sorry. I'm so upset that happened. What? They said. Right. I said, well, it all went wrong. Oh, I don't think we thought that's how it was.
Yeah. I'm always a little upset when people think, like, that's what I meant? You thought that's what I meant? Right. That's what I wanted you to see?
It's extraordinary, isn't it? Yeah. I know, but they believe a lot of it, whether it's wrong or not. Yeah.
Anything go wrong in Millie?
Well, we were teching Millie. Someone came in to check the fire alarm and had not turned off the water curtain, because, you know, there's a curtain of water that's released if the fire alarm goes off. It's kind of, and I think in newer theaters they have that rather than that big steel thing that comes down. So they hadn't checked that. So our lighting designer, Don Holder, was standing center stage when they tested the fire alarm, and, you know, 15,000 gallons of filthy water that had been stored in somewhere up there came pouring down on top of him and into the pit, into the front of the stage.
Right, I remember. I forgot.
It was quite a mess, and the sound people had just put in all of the microphones in the pit, so all the pit microphones were destroyed. And we were just lucky that the cast wasn't on stage, that it was far enough downstage, that no scenery was affected, and it somehow didn't sink onto our deck. So we ended up losing, you know, I think 6 hours of tech time. So we went into the lobby and drilled the dances and cleaned arms. You know, you do whatever you can do. And yeah, but that happened to us. That was something. Poor Don Holder.
What would you be doing if you were not a choreographer?
I don't know. I really don't.
There was not a second choice? Law?
Well, I was going to be a lawyer. I mean, I was in pre-law program at a university in Virginia, and when I was bitten by the theater bug, you know, my advisor said, to be a great lawyer, you should either major in theater or English, because that's what it's all about. And I chose theater, and, you know, that was,
you were.
Yeah, and I don't think I could be a lawyer now. Yeah.
Is there anything else you might have done?
Well, yeah, I told you I was pre-med, and I got my degree before I moved into
Did you have a medical degree?
No, well, pre-med degree.
Pre-med degree. Well, you can do CPR on stage or something. Have those twisted ankles. You can, all those
I can wrap an ankle.
You can wrap an ankle. No regrets that you're not Dr.
No, this is who I am, yeah.
Okay. You started as a dancer so young and an actress, so you didn't have any hope of doing anything else.
Really nothing else.
Nothing else.
I started and I've never stopped. If I had to change at all, in another life, I might like to be a conductor. I think that's the most wonderful job in the world. But of vast orchestras.
Yes, right.
Not really show business.
So it's a control thing. You want to be in charge here.
No, because I just so love music.
Well, I once said to a conductor, that's a wonderful job that you have, beautiful music, and he said it's horrible. I won't say who said this, because all the musicians are all unhappy. They all wanted to be soloists. They don't like what you're conducting. They don't like the music. They played Beethoven's Fifth enough, and they're miserably unhappy. So I was so depressed.
That is depressing.
I think you chose the right thing.
Yes,
I don't think you want
I'll
to be a
stick where I am.
Do you guys?
Was there, you were doing finance? Did you?
Good research. Long ago, yeah. Although as a kid, I wanted to be an archaeologist. I thought that would be really fun. I loved Greek mythology and like figuring out where we've come from and what's buried underneath. That seemed to me a fun thing.
Do you guys miss dancing?
Yes. Do you miss?
Because I just realized I do miss performing.
So do I.
Do
Very
you?
much.
Yeah.
Oh, you do. What is the satisfaction that you
Of
don't?
performing?
Yes, that you don't get. Oh, they're applauding. Is that it?
Oh no, it's a completely different situation. I mean, it's a different situation. It's a different kind of control. I mean, you're you know.
Yes, but at the end of nobody's screaming, director, director. I'm sorry to say, they're, you know,
They do. I feel like when they applaud at the end, I feel like they're applauding
Yes.
for a thing
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I
the whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that
too.
I don't love directing and choreographing, and that I get incredibly satisfied from that. It's an incredible satisfaction, like I said before, to see something that you wished, that you imagined, that you wanted to do, make that happen. You know, you have a vision. You might not even be able to articulate it. It's a feeling. It's like, I want to do, you know, my thing is to do numbers that build, to do the Broadway build is my passion is to do the old-fashioned, like, get to a crazy moment and have standing ovation in the middle of the show. And but if you ask me, you know, is there anything that you want to do? Yeah, you know, I really loved performing when I was dancing and acting. I acted a little too, so.
I miss the camaraderie. I miss that dressing room time before a show. I miss that, you know, at half hour on a 2-show day, you know, when the guy's just hanging out in the dressing room and that feeling of family. That's what I miss that, and I'm acutely aware of it. Like during previews of a show, when you don't have anywhere to be anymore, your tech table's gone, your little world is gone, and then you go up to the dressing room to give notes or just say hi, and you don't fit in there anymore. There's not really a place for you.
They look at you as if you're an alien a bit, don't they too?
Yeah, and especially when you're going in dressing rooms that you used to be in. I mean, it's like, oh, that was my spot.
And you've given 3 years of your time or a year of your time.
It's a different thing. I miss that. That's what I miss.
And did you want to be an actor?
As a kid, I was an actor.
Oh, you were an actor.
For
okay.
a very good one, but I was an actor.
And where did you study? Or did you?
Just college and high schools and stuff. It was like many Olivers, many Sound of Musics, and all the things that you can be in as a little kid.
I have a friend who's an actress, and I never see her because she's always working. Do you have time, or is these all-consuming? Do you have time for friendship? Your families, people that you can see, or are you constant? When you say a year of working on something, or 3 years, do you find that you have time for friends?
If you don't, you're missing something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This year was pretty. Actually, I had to put a lot of that on hold, but you have to have a balanced life. That's what you draw on.
But I think they narrow down, don't they? I don't think we've probably got time for hundreds of them. It sort of narrows down to a nucleus of people who understand you and your crazy life.
Well, also that
and
you
can
work
pick
at
you
night.
up, and that, you know, because we have to pick friends up and put them down again. Because when we're like this, getting the show on, we're pretty bad friends, aren't we? We don't actually want to answer phone calls and things because our minds are going. And then it goes on, and we're all lonely, and we say hello. And we hope to be loved again. And so I think it's a real friend who understands that you really love them, but you pick them up and put them down because you have to.
There's a funny, like, you do a production and you become so incredibly close to those people, and that process of instantly bonding and then letting go of that bond and then rebonding with a new group of people is really particular to the theater, I think. Everything else is like more continuous. There's this odd kind of gypsy, you're my best friend, I spend every waking hour with you, and then maybe I'll see you next year.
Well, I've heard people say that the theater family is easier than dealing with your own real family. That it's a substitute, and they're easier.
Everybody wants to be so
You are.
powerful and positive. I try to make sure I have friends outside the theater community. I think it's
And
really
you do a lot
important.
of reading outside of theatrical reading? I mean, you talked so much about intuition and becoming mature. What are the methods one uses?
Yeah, you try to. I'm trying. You know what I try to do is have a really well-balanced life. But now I'm reading Disney Wars, which is about theater or film. But you know, reading. You know, sure, if you have time, it's great for your brain. You know, you know, when you focus so hard, because what we do is, you know, you have to focus so hard. You have, especially if it's like being a teacher. If you have 20, 40 people standing there listening to you, you have to be focused for long periods of time. You need time of unfocused brain activity, and that's being with friends or.
Also now things take so long to develop, like Chris said, 3 years on the show. You're working on 4 or 5 things at once in development, in various stages of development, and you're always doing that. And just when you think that everything's set, then a new project comes in, and the beginning stages of that collaboration starts as the end stages of one, you know, happens. It's a constant refilling, it seems, too, which is.
If you had to advise a young person who came to you and said, I'd like to be a director or a choreographer, what would you advise them to study and do?
I go back to the first thing I said, is the more worldly you can be, and I mean that in a positive way, the better off you are. The more you've traveled, the more people you know, the more opportunities, the more languages you speak, the more movies you see, the more books you read. Everything helps you. Everything is a tool that you'll come to use at some point, I think.
What tools would you advise a young person to?
I tell them to call Chris and find a way to assist him. You know. Or you know, I mean,
Get into the business. Get in
if somebody
as a
call one of the great
apprentice.
directors, because that's how. I mean, one of the really, you know, that's how people get into the business now. It's like you assist, you apprentice, you intern. Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Well, how would you advise a young person who might be interested in?
I would advise to go and see across the board opera and ballet and plays and even and films, and look at television, the few wonderful televisions there are now as opposed to the nasty things that have developed. and I would say that you'll feel a leaning, and the more you see of those things, it's going to enrich you, as Rod says. But you will, if you really decided that's what you want to do, you'll feel a leaning to one of them, and then you go great guns for the craft that is.
What would you advise a young person who said, I want to be a director?
I'd say pick things that you're excited to direct and direct them anywhere. That people, it's a craft that you get better and better at, and you have to do it. And ultimately people hire directors because they've liked their work. So you have to have done work that people can see, and if it's in a basement, do it. And get passionate about things. Don't expect people to hire you on their project. Figure out what it is that you love and make that production happen.
Schooling? Is it important?
And that can happen in school, or that
But
can
is
happen
it
in the
important
world.
to go to graduate school or drama school, or
Depends.
is it life or is it school?
It's funny because I was doing a talk at Harvard actually, and they were saying, well, what college do you go to get a master's degree in choreography? I mean, it's like the College of Broadway, the College of Do It, the College of Go In. And I'm sure there are wonderful programs in colleges that will teach you how to do certain things, but as far as to be a choreographer in a musical, for musicals, you need to get in there and
It's passed on.
Yeah,
it's
it
passed
is.
on from the people who do it.
Yeah.
From one. That's what I sort of was joking about with Chris. It's like one to the next. It's sort of it's a passed on tradition, and you have to bring something to the table. You have to grow up. You have to see as much as possible and have as many experiences.
Shape your taste.
Yes. Yeah. Have your.
But I agreed with Chris that go and do it anywhere. Don't think, I'll wait till I can do it in a Swipsy place.
Right.
Just go and do it anywhere at all, because you never know when you'll be seen, and you are discovering new things all the time, and you have to do it, as you say.
Spielberg made home movies as a kid. You know, I mean, just did it. You know.
A lot of you have done movies. Speaking of movies, you've done 11. I think
Done a lot of movies.
Yes. What's the crossover there? I mean, is it a totally different experience?
It's a one-time event, so you're not creating something that's going to be done 8 times a week.
Right.
I'll give you the basics, and the other is that you're creating choreography where you're directing the eye instead of, you're showing the audience, look at the feet with the editing, as opposed to on stage, you have to focus on stage to get them to look at the feet over here, So those are the two primary differences.
And,
you've done a lot.
talk about trusting your instincts and your intuition. I mean, to me, it feels more like in that instance than in any theater, because you put up a dance and you get at least a week of previews or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, so you get to see it and then change it. At a movie, you're shooting that day. Those are the people for that day. This is the set for that minute, for those 3 hours, and you see the first take, and then you have to look at it and watch it on the playback and then decide completely, like, okay, change. All the women should be up on the sidewalk, all the men should not do the lift, and the car should come 4 counts sooner. And then they film that, and after 2 or 3 of those, it's done. Now then you're trying to keep it exactly the same. You don't have the ability to edit it the way you would in a show. So I think it's really a lesson in trusting your gut.
It feels like tech all the time to me, making a film. Like the way that rehearsal in theater is you have got time. You're considering things and you're sleeping on them and you're coming back to them. And tech is time is money. And on film set, there's incredible time pressure all the time. So it's being able to do the thing fast, focused, and under pressure on your feet.
It moves about the same pace as tech too.
Yeah.
Slow but pressured, which is a funny combination.
And 3 seconds, 4 seconds at a time, 10 seconds.
I was lucky
was
because,
your
I made, and I'm still doing them, but more as a director now, but I made a lot of big movies where we had, for instance, Man of La Mancha. We were all in Rome for 9 months.
Wow.
Fantastic, half a sixpence, half. It took 9 months to make. Wow. So I was able to, if I'm working on a movie, I start entirely from the camera and build everything from what the camera is going to tell. But we then, in those days, we had time to really rehearse it properly. But you don't now. You have to work so fast.
So fast.
Yeah, so you do have to go from the point of view of the camera because you won't have time to make something and then think how it's going to be shot. The two have to develop hand in glove.
Yeah.
But it sounds similar that you do most of the work before you get to the set.
Oh yeah.
You often do the skeleton crew.
Yeah.
Did you do skeleton crew on your?
Yeah.
You do skeleton crew of dancers that.
Yeah.
And
you make them
storyboarding as well. Storyboarding the actual steps so that you can give this to all of the cameramen and the DP and everyone so that they actually know what it is you're going for.
Is there something you could learn from filmmaking that could be applied to the theater?
Speed. You have to work
thinking fast.
Well, you might get a day to stage a number and then shoot it, whereas you might have, you have a whole rehearsal process. But I learned speed on film.
And focus,
changing
don't
on
you
the
think,
spot.
too?
Focus,
Very much you learn about focus from film.
Is that true for you too?
Yeah, I would say that of any kind of theater to make, making a Broadway musical feels the most like making a film. They're both, lots of people get together in a lot of pressure and make a thing. And then a Broadway show can keep on having a life in a way that a film can, and a lot of plays, so they come and go.
Right. But the musical lasts.
Sometimes, if they go into the kind of canon, then that's sort of thrilling.
Has that happened for you?
Are
Are you waiting for the canon? You've got into the canon.
Oh, she has.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
No, my favourite thing of the lot is directing television.
Really?
Yeah, it is, actually. Because I love the camaraderie with your crew. I always use 6 cameras. They always have a fight. They say you can only have 5. I say I'll pay for the other one myself. All right, you can have 6. They say, and it's wonderful to bind that group of fellas. I'm very naughty and wear sexy outfits so that I can get the cameras where I want them. But it's very wonderful to work that group of people. They become like your family, and I actually like the writing of the film script and all of that. Oh. So I say this, and people look at me aghast as if it's a sort of something from another age, because I've made quite a lot of ballets and also plays on television, but it's hard to get that to happen now.
Yeah.
It's more difficult to work in many mediums?
I think to get offbeat things, to get unusual, to get sort of artistic things off the ground now, it's very difficult, I would say.
I want to thank you all so much. I've learned a lot, but directing a musical, being an arranger, a dance arranger, a choreographer, I thank you all for the wonderful lesson, also in life. Thank you so very much. My name is Pia Lindstrom for the American Theater Wing. I appreciate your watching. We are coming to you from the Graduate Center of City University. Thank you.